Alrighty, we will get started here. Thank you everyone for your time today and joining us. My name is Matt Gallo. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer here at Accelirate. We are National Diamond Partners with UiPath and the largest pure play implementation partner in the U.S. We're here today to talk about kind of a bit of phenomenon that's been happening during COVID. Really during the last 3 years, automation has revolved around RPA and back office automation. Now we've seen a major shift of focus on automation programs to improving the individual employee's output and how companies are now looking to scale, a robot for every person. So leading that charge at UiPath, my partner in crime for today, I have with me Brandon Nott. He's the SVP of product. Brandon, you want to share a bit about your background?
Hi, thanks very much for having me today, and thanks everybody for joining. I know we've got a lot of Zoom meetings and discussions and Teams, whatever the case. So thanks very much for spending your time with us. My background very quickly, I was a customer before I was an employee at UiPath. I ran operations for a mortgage company and then used UiPath as part of my digital transformation initiatives and really was so enamored with it, I wanted to go and be part of UiPath, and now I'm focusing on our attended automation practice in the product side.
Awesome. That's actually kind of the funny way Brandon and I actually first met a few years back. So it's great to continue working together here a few years later. So we'll dive right into it. Ultimately, what is RDA, robotic desktop automation? Really, it's a separate branch of enterprise automation. The UiPath attended bot actually acts like a high-impact digital assistant that's really focused on the small daily desktop tasks that can be automated into, call them reusable modules in order to be called upon whenever the situation becomes relevant. As of UiPath's latest release, they started introducing even a concept of interactive RDA that really intelligently starts prompting an employee when a situation occurs and actually starts guiding the end user through that entire process. Brandon, I know we're going to get into this a bit more later on the presentation, but do you want to talk through how that interaction is better empowering attended robots?
Absolutely. So if we think about it classically, a lot of people are comfortable with the idea that you tell a process to start, you double click it, you schedule it, whatever the case is, and then the process executes, right? This is how we've historically thought about RPA. With attended automation and the enhancements made December's release, as well as the most recent release here just a few weeks ago, attended automation is really becoming much more of a dance, I like to say, rather than just a fire and forget weapon. So now your UiPath assistant is capable of listening to your actions. If you move a file to a folder, it can take an action immediately with that. And then it may need some additional information from you. So it'll surface a form that you can make a selection on or take an action with, or it may add some extra pop-ups to inform you about what's going on. So now think about attended automation as a much more fluid type of automation where the experience with the robot isn't a one-time run this process and wait. It's the robot can engage you throughout the process.
That's great. Again, just kind of continually making this much more powerful, within the daily scope of an employee. We'll dive into quickly here the differences between, a lot of people get these confused or even think they're the same thing, but really the differences between the concept of a citizen developer or a robot for every person. We're going to spend a lot more time on the citizen developer in our web group on Thursday at 2 p.m. But it's important to highlight the difference and the overlaps between these two concepts. Really, it's the citizen developer is around Studio X. It's a part of the robot for every person, and it is essentially a business user with an advanced training and development that has the tools and skills required to develop automation modules move them through the center of excellence, and then really out to production for general public use. A lot of people think that this maybe has to be the entire company. It can, but really it can scale to whatever that business's objectives are. And making sure to either have it as a whole group or just limit it to a specific group. Remember, a lot of people confuse this with they want to develop their own automations, and while this may have some truth, the goal of the citizen developer is really for people in the business to develop automations for everyone's use. Not just their own, and then that brings us to what a robot for every person is. And this is a concept that any person can be more productive with the assistance of desktop automation. And having a bot on every desktop, you can start to maximize an employee's efficiency, accuracy, and allow them to spend more time with your client on revenue generating tasks. And really is a goal of eventually having 100% of your teams start to embrace this and become more efficient. Brandon, it would be great to hear your feedback on what you're seeing and address some of the overlaps these programs tend to have.
Absolutely. So I think you outlined it really well, right? I'd like to say that these are two halves to the same coin when it comes to the business users. On one side, you've got the consumption of automation. On the other side, you have the creation or ideation around those processes. So it's safe to say you get to choose as a company what the right level of engagement is for you based on other tools that you have, based on your objectives for the automation practice. And a company like Accelirate can help you size that program both for the here and now as well as the future. And we're seeing right now a lot of companies with large cost savings targets being put on them, whether it's through the current kind of macroeconomic environment that we're in or specific objectives within an organization. So you can look at how you bring attended automation and citizen development to life within your organization based on the timeline that you're looking at and based on the size of the either savings or expansion or capability enhancements that you're looking for.
Awesome. And the other part is there is a lot of these programs have overlapping tool sets. A lot of people think these are all different programs. Yes, obviously some of the licensing can be different between whether you want specifically an attended or a Studio X, depending on the company or even the employee's appetite for. But a lot of the governance still is managed through the same center of excellence to make sure that these things stay aligned. We'll move here next into kind of where it starts to get exciting, and the attended automation use cases. And these are just a few that we've outlined. RDA is really a precision automation tactic. It's done at a micro level even. Each business unit has different automation needs. We have a few of the areas here that we've seen kind of be the most popular places that clients have started their a robot for every person journey. And just want to kind of comb through a few of these. So, the call center, that's kind of where a lot of people hear this first. This is really where the CSR, the customer service representative, can focus more on the customer and really reduce the hold time. Then you got claims. This is where traditional RPA can sometimes struggle because of the occasional need to provide human input to complete the task. So rather than relying on a process running smoothly 100% of the time, in order to be successful, you can have RDA kind of come in the loop as needed. Loan servicing, where the human is needed to start with certain parameters, but RDA allows the rest to execute faster and more accurately. And then lastly is kind of like accounts payable, something I think everyone here can relate to, where errors may come up from OCR, which would typically fail a process, forcing the user to look at everything again, whereas attended robots will just focus the human's attention specifically where it's needed. So, those are just four kind of main areas that we've seen. But next, what we wanted to do, so to walk through a specific use case. Today we have Vineet Gojani, one of Accelerate's senior automation engineers, with us, and we're going to actually walk through a use case here.
Thank you, Matt. So we wanted to share a specific use case that we've implemented for one of our major financial clients. So if you look at the problem statement, our client had around 600 call centers, call center employees working out of 3 US offices. And they used to receive around 3 million calls every single year, and out of which 15% of them were specific to 401k loans and withdrawals. So that specifically roughly amounts to 450,000 calls a year. So our primary goal of automation was to have the 100% data accuracy, and we wanted to reduce the talk time. We also wanted to eliminate the hold time completely. So from a solution design standpoint, we have built a digital assistant which works alongside the customer call center employees, and we have also deployed the bot on all 600 user machines. So we have completed the entire code development of 6 sprints, which led to a faster implementation. And it involved 4 weeks of user training. It also involved 4 weeks of hypercare effort. So the key aspects include faster implementation. There is a less effort from client side as well, and we have built a rapid ROI from our end. So what it does was, once the customer has been authenticated, the call center employee would just click on the run button, and the bot generates a beautiful dashboard with all the customer's financial information. For example, existing loans, taxes, age, state tax, federal tax, plan, employer match percentage, minimum payments, and loan tenures, etc. So the final outcomes that we've achieved out of this automation were improved data accuracy, which is almost at 100%. We've also achieved highest customer satisfaction, and we've also eliminated entire repeat callers completely. And we have brought down the end-to-end execution time frame to about 60 seconds. And we have saved around 2 hours of full-time effort per employee per day. And the annual ROI that we have achieved out of this automation was around close to 400,000.
That's fantastic. This was a client that was actually using, had a major RPA program going, in different business units, and then actually, wanted to attack one of their call centers and start to improve it. And this was something that we were able to get in actually before COVID, which has been increasingly, much more effective for them. Thank you, Vineet.
Sure, Matt.
So, really, lastly, here from the Accelirate side is look, getting started. You want to be tactical with getting your program started. Accelirate has had a lot of success with our RPA 90X accelerator program because it doesn't go after the porridge that's too hot or too cold, but bites off just the right amount to show success to the business owners in a quick time frame while ensuring its success and really allocating next steps. So, really, what does that mean? When getting started, the goal here is, don't spread yourself too thin. You want to evaluate one business unit at a time. Really looking at that, those things can be done in parallel, but you want to make sure that you're just focused on one aspect that you can take some results from. Understand that these use cases are going to be measured in minutes, across a lot of people. So you want to target large groups within that business unit. So, that's why you want to look for things that are at least 500 users. These are the 2 to 4 minute tasks that are going to be multiplied across that multiple times a day. Then you want to take those and target 3 to 5 automation modules that can be put into production in just 90 days. So you can start seeing that impact again to that business unit, something that's going to be measurable. And then lastly, you're going to want to make sure that you're educating and enabling your end users so that they understand and can support these programs. So our RDA 90X methodology, includes three aspects: evaluate, execute, and enable. Where the first 6 to 8 weeks actually, the interesting part is, comparatively speaking, compared to our RPA, we spent a lot more time in the front end educating and enabling. Whereas with these, because these tasks are only 2 to 4 minutes, the execution time is a lot shorter. So the evaluation part is where we spend most of our time making sure we understand are aligned with the business, and then we spend 6 to 8 weeks making sure we have the right 3 to 5 modules. Spend the next month or so enabling, and really the last couple of weeks making sure we're gathering license requirements, understanding how many attended you're going to need, how many Studio X you're going to need, installing the product, setting up some work groups, and doing some training. So, Brandon, before we dive into your portion of the presentation, would love to also hear from you as to where you've seen kind of the sweet spot with these clients, kind of, not starting too small or making sure that there's a big enough impact?
Yeah, really good point. I like to say it's like buying a goldfish. Whatever size container you put that fish in, that's how big it's going to grow. And when it comes to your RPA or RDA or your overall hyperautomation plan, the outcomes are tightly correlated to the investment and the objectives that you set out. We have companies that start in the multi-million-dollar range. We have companies that start in the tens of thousands of dollar range, right? And there isn't, at least from what I've seen, a case of that success is measured based on size per se. What it is, success can happen at any size, but when it comes to the goals that you're trying to accomplish, the impact that you're trying to make, we do see that the more that you treat it like an enterprise project, the bigger the outcome. And that doesn't have, again, any correlation to the processes themselves. So there are processes that are short but create a tremendous amount of value. There are processes that are long that are incremental. And, your job really, as you're pursuing your automation goals, is to be clear on what you want to accomplish and then start backing into the processes that will execute them, and then choose the methodology that makes the most sense. The great thing about UiPath is that you write the same code for an unattended robot as you do for an attended robot. And even if you use Studio X in a citizen developer scenario, it's still the same underlying activities and code base. So really, no matter how you approach it, you have code that is very, very portable. And that portability gives you options as you go on. So to summarize, start with your initiative, start with your objectives. What are you trying to accomplish? Back in to how then you want to start or continue your automation journey, and then start looking at the processes that map directly to that.
And just as a last thing here, make it fun. We do these things with our clients called botathons. It's really a brainstorming session where we're coming up with a bunch of ideas, giving people a taste for some development, helping them understand how this is really going to make their life a heck of a lot better and more efficient, and have them focusing on all the fun things that are about their job, not the monotonous day-to-day stuff. So, just as I said, keep it focused, but make sure it's going to have a big enough impact. So, with that, Brandon, want to share yours and dive into the presentation?
Great. Let's do it. So what I will do here, first we'll take a look at a couple slides, and bear with me here as I will share my screen. All right, can you see the presentation?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. So first, let's just differentiate between personal productivity and overall business productivity or business transformation. When we talk about attended automation and RDA, you have to ask the question, why is this going to be useful? Why is this going to be interesting to me? And the answer is somewhat based on history. So if you look at some of the tools that transformed the way, not that work was done, but how you do work, how you interact with your work. We can take a look at the Pocket Calculator, for instance. When it came out, it fundamentally changed the way that people did their job. That's no longer using a slide rule or long math equations or an abacus. Now you're just pressing buttons and getting immediate answers. Same thing with the PC. No more typewriter, no more manual, analog creating of documents. Now you can go back and edit and rearrange and shift your documents at will. Change the way that we did work. The internet comes along. No longer are we writing memos. Are we delivering things by hand or shipping or courier, as our only options? Now we have instantaneous real-time communication. The mobile phone comes along. We're no longer tethered to our office. We can be mobile. We for better or for worse, we can be on vacation and take a business call very easily. So all these devices come along, and now we take them for granted. But at the time, they're really transformational in terms of how we did our work. And robot assistants are the same thing. When you have the ability to offload work to a robot running on your computer that has access to your passwords, has access to your file system, and is wrapped in a governance program that you trust. Now you've got the ability, you basically have a mini-me. You have a robot that has delegated authority and can execute on your behalf. And when we look at a report from Gartner, they estimate 25% of digital workers having this digital assistant by 2021. And that's a pretty significant impact. So we already talked about robot for every person being both about consumption and about creation, authoring. So I think we're now familiar with that. A lot of the benefits are in line with what you're used to seeing in unattended automation in RPA, right? It's faster, it's more accurate. Humans are freed up to do higher value tasks. So we share with RDA a lot of the same core value drivers as RDA, but we do it differently. There's a different mechanism here. When you put a robot on every desktop, you now have a vehicle for that digital transformation. You can deploy processes from the COE at will. We have a customer who in 4 days identified the need for a COVID-related use case, created it, deployed it, and then had employees using it in their day-to-day. So you're getting a platform that's capable of very fast deployment, redeployment as necessary, and that can ride those governance rails and ride the technology rails. So if we look at it, from a straight line math standpoint, right? This is just one example. If we were to take 20 minutes out of an employee's day, and let's say conservatively that's a $35 an hour employee loaded cost. From over the course of a year, you're looking at roughly $3,000 in savings. When you apply that to everyone in an organization, that's 10,000 employees. Now you're looking at a $30 million savings. So the beginning to the conversation is, let's start quantifying the value of 20 minutes. But you may say, I don't have an organization where I have hourly employees. Most people are salaried. What do I do then? How do I calculate the value? And this goes back to the conversation around what are you trying to accomplish? So in my case, when I was in operations in the mortgage space, it was a scale story for me. We had an objective to be a top 50 more independent mortgage lender. And in order to do that, I couldn't just keep throwing people at it. I had to make those people more effective. So for me, it was a scale story. My processors went from 20 loans a month to 45 loans a month on average. And the result was about throughput and speed and customer experience for that mortgage process.
And just to chime in there quickly, this is something that Accelirate and UiPath team together with clients to have these conversations. It's not just one aspect. It's not just one business unit. It's having a conversation with the stakeholders, with the business units, with the UiPath team, with the engagement directors, understanding what your goal is, and then building a path that's going to accomplish that.
Absolutely. And we'll switch to a quick demo here so that you can see some of these tools in action. But before that, I'll suggest, in addition to the use cases that were shown earlier, you can also think about this with categories of use cases. There's personal productivity things that I can use to make my day more effective. There's start, stop my day, which are very helpful, especially in call center environments, and departmental activities, specific finance activities, HR, whatever the case may be, that are really geared towards that department, as well as training and enablement, taking the cost out of training, doing on-the-job, real-time training using RPA is also something that we're seeing more and more of. So I will switch over to a quick demo here. Let me know, please, if the audio does not come through. And
your screen stopped sharing there for a second, just FYI.
No worries, no worries. I'm just switching over to the video.
Still not coming up.
Did you have audio or video?
There's no video, it's just a black screen.
Let me switch that up. Okay, can you see the screen?
There we go. Now we're good.
Great. Did we have audio?
Not that I don't think so. No, yeah, it's just voiceover. Yeah, so there's no audio.
Okay, so essentially, let's look at it this way. I am, in this case, an HR manager, and I start my day off looking at resumes. So I can have the UiPath Assistant, which you see on the right-hand side, essentially give me a reminder to take that task off of my plate. So instead of me having to review those resumes, my UiPath Assistant can spawn a new window just for the robot that is basically a copy of my desktop and can run this process independently. And what you see here is the robot prompting me to resolve an exception. As I talked about, it's a bit of a dance here. If the robot is running in the background by itself and encounters a problem, it can bring that problem to me and I can resolve it. On the Studio X side, we have this is the other side of the coin, right? I want to create a process. And sticking with this HR persona, let's say that I onboard employees, and as I onboard, I have to create temporary passwords for them. So I can tell Studio X to watch me do this process, and it can record my actions. So I go to this password generator website, I copy this password, and I paste it into the Excel document. You're looking at Studio X here. And then perhaps I don't want to send these emails automatically like I did in the previous example. In this one, I want to review the emails and maybe I want to add something to the email. So I can tell Studio X to write down the temporary password into the email and then save that email as a draft so I can go back and review it later. So I can audit what the robot has done. I can see those passwords in the Excel spreadsheet, and I can also see those drafts created in my inbox. And finally, we're going to take a look at Automation Hub, which is UiPath's collaboration portal. You can use Automation Hub for your own personal ideas as well as your COE to manage the backlog and the process intake. So in this example, I am going to submit an idea to Automation Hub. In this case, it's my password generation idea. I go through, I fill it out. You see I have an assessment there based on the value of that process and how ready it is to go. And then the COE can build that, or I could build it as a citizen developer. And you see now the COE has deployed it to my local UiPath assistant, and I can now execute it. But in this case, it's gone through the COE. It has that governance associated with it. So that's the quick demo there. I apologize for the challenges that we had at the beginning, but essentially I hope that helps show how UiPath Assistant, Studio X, and Automation Hub come together to support that Robot for Every Person initiative.
Awesome, thank you, Brandon. And Megan, if you just want to put the last slide on the screen. So, again, thank you everyone for joining us. The closing things here are, look, start the conversation. Engage your leadership team. Engage your UiPath account manager. UiPath Accelerate we help build those use cases for you, those case studies, those outcomes that your business is looking for, to help show how this is going to bring that value to you. And if you want to hear more about the citizen developer, and the importance of having clear guidelines in place, join us on Thursday from 2 to 2:30 Eastern with Andrew Hall from UiPath and our Chief Automation Officer, Emmett Zadie. So thank you so much. Let us know if you have any questions, and have a great day.